Alabama, let's get it.
The process, no one can stop this. Hottest show in the streets, I bet you can't top this. Rammer, jammer, yellow hammer, come see how we rock this. Alabama fans the best, there's no way you can top this. Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
The process.
Hey everyone, Justin Smith there, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama magazine. Thank you guys so much for joining me today on The Process, Crimson Tide Recruiting. You guys can check out the show every Tuesday and Thursday evening on Touchdown Alabama's YouTube page. If you're not subscribed to Touchdown Alabama on YouTube, no better time to do that than now. Be sure to go ahead, hit that subscribe button below. Also, be sure to leave a like whether you are subscribed or not. On today's episode of the show, I am going to talk about one of the Crimson Tide's visitors from this past weekend and also talk about an interesting target in the 2022 recruiting class who looks to be rising on Alabama's recruiting board after a great camp showing. This prospect is also set to announce a verbal commitment on Thursday. I will get an opportunity to talk about the prospect a little bit later in the show, but before I get an opportunity to dive into what he brings to the table and how his visit to the University of Alabama went on Monday, I do want to hit you guys with a couple of other quick recruiting updates, starting with the Crimson Tide offering a 2025 prospect with a familiar name. Alabama offered Keelan Moses out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana on Monday. Moses is the younger brother of former Alabama linebacker Dylan Moses. They have plenty of similarities, especially when you look at the frame that Keelan Moses currently possesses at 6'2" and approximately 210 pounds. He is a rising ninth grade, played middle school football last year. He is expected to play high school football for University Lab High School this upcoming season. Alabama extended an offer to him after watching him work out as a linebacker in Tuscaloosa. You guys can check out and learn a lot more about Keelan Moses over at touchdownalabama.com, as I did get an opportunity to speak with the rising freshman. You guys be sure to check out that article, like I said, over at touchdownalabama.com. Alabama also offered another Louisiana prospect going into the 2022 recruiting class, as they offered a rising defensive tackle out of Louisiana in Fitzgerald West. This is a prospect who stands at 6'3" and weighs approximately 300 pounds. He was a force for Lafayette Christian Academy as a junior. He really showed a lot of potential, especially with his quickness off of the snap. He was also a guy who showed that he had some strength to go along with that speed. Nick Saban and the Tides coaching staff really complimented him on his quickness and his power during his workout with the University of Alabama recently. Like similar to Keelan Moses, you guys can check out his interview over at touchdownalabama.com as well. Alabama hosted one of their top in-state targets in the 2023 recruiting class, and Yunze Pierre. He is a defensive end out of Eufaula High School in Eufaula, Alabama. He got an opportunity to work out in Tuscaloosa recently, got an opportunity to visit and take a tour of the Alabama players' facilities, got a chance to speak with Nick Saban during his visit as well. Nick Saban told the in-state edge rusher that he believes that he can be a great outside linebacker for the Crimson Tide at that jack position, a guy with long arms who can provide some pressure out of the edge, a guy who could possibly drop back in coverage as well. You guys can check out a lot more about Yunze over at touchdownalabama.com as well. But now I am going to switch gears to the main focus of today's show, and that is to discuss a 2022 tight end out of St. Petersburg, Florida, in Amari Niblack, who recently picked up an offer from the Crimson Tide, and he has set a commitment date for Thursday, and Alabama looks to be in a real good position for the rising tight end prospect. First, when you look at his measurements, this is a guy who stands at 6'5". He has a pretty thick frame. When you take a look at his particular makeup, he's a guy who plays wide receiver and tight end for Lakewood High School in St. Petersburg, Florida. He lines up as an inline tight end at times, but he can also line up wide as a wide receiver. So he's one of those hybrid tight end prospects. He really impressed Alabama's coaching staff during a workout recently, and Alabama's coaching staff was so blown away that they extended an offer to him. He got an opportunity to tour the Tide's player facilities. Had an opportunity to have a lengthy conversation with Nick Saban. He told me that that conversation went really well. Nick Saban really seemed to be really interested in the St. Petersburg prospect. This is a guy who I will pay attention to as he is set to announce his commitment on Thursday, on June 24th. I think Alabama is in a great position with him now. He basically announced that commitment date after Alabama extended an offer to him. I got an opportunity to speak with him, and you guys can hear a little bit of that conversation as I will play some audio from it as he discusses and talks about how his visit to Tuscaloosa went.
I love it. I like the atmosphere. I love the way they coach. I love how everything's traditional there. Everything is just what it's supposed to be.
And we will have more of that interview over at touchdowналabama.com. No better time to pick up your subscription to Touchdown Alabama. Go ahead and head over to touchdowналabama.com after I wrap up this episode of The Process. But another thing I wanted to talk about on today's show is the Crimson Tide taking the top position in the pursuit for 2022 four-star defensive back Earl Little Jr. out of American Heritage High School in Plantation, Florida. He got an opportunity to spend a couple of days in Tuscaloosa recently, and he was blown away. His dad was blown away by the visit. They got an opportunity to see everything that Alabama has to offer. Earl Little Jr. said that his favorite part was a sleep deprivation bed that Alabama has inside of his players' facilities. He said he went to sleep in there for like 30 minutes and it felt like he was asleep for 2 hours. Talked about the quality time that he got to spend with the Crimson Tide's coaching staff. He said he has a great relationship with multiple members of Alabama's coaching staff. It was a great chance to get an opportunity to spend some time with those guys in person, and he said that Alabama was #1 on his recruiting board after this particular visit. So Alabama looks to be in a great position with a pair of Florida prospects here. First, looking at Amari Niblack, a guy I think Tide fans should pay close attention to. We will drop an interview with him over at touchdowналabama.com pretty soon. Be sure to check out that interview ahead of his Thursday commitment. Also looking at Earl Little Jr. Alabama has climbed to the top of his recruitment. He does plan to be in Tuscaloosa in November on the weekend of the LSU game to take an official visit to the University of Alabama, and I think Alabama will keep the position that they are in heading into the fall, and hopefully they can finish off his recruitment with a signature from him. He said that they want to use him in a similar fashion to the way that they used Minkah Fitzpatrick during his time in Tuscaloosa, basically as a versatile defensive back, a guy who can go man-to-man with your favorite player and cover the top as a safety, a guy who can come down and blitz and sack the quarterback in certain occasions, and this is a guy who has shown that he can do that at American Heritage High School. So Earl Little would be a great pickup for the Crimson Tide, basically making sure Alabama fans definitely pay attention to both of these guys over the next couple of months in terms of Earl Little Jr., but over the next couple of days in terms of Amari Niblack. But that would do it for this episode of The Process. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Touchdown Alabama's YouTube page. If you're not subscribed to Touchdown Alabama on YouTube, go ahead, do that right now. Hit that subscribe button before you leave. Also, be sure to leave a like whether you are subscribed or not. Then head over to touchdowналabama.com. Pick up your subscription today. With that subscription, you will be able to read all of our subscriber-only articles. Get your hands on our yearly print magazine issue. Get an opportunity to read our in-depth scouting reports on each Tide commit and each recruiting class as well. Then you head to the Google Play Store if you have an Android device, or to the Apple App Store if you have an Apple device, to download the Touchdown Alabama app. With that app, breaking news notifications can be sent to your mobile device. As always, I am Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama magazine.
Process.